I'm a big fan of horror in the woods. And so I think the title of this book is what got me interested in it. So today we're going to talk about the book The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. This is my first time reading this author, and holy bananas, it is a wild book. It follows this group of friends who, when they were in high school, were just this really tight knit group who took care of each other. They had what they called the covenant. It was something they invoked, like when something was important to them. They had each other's backs. Like if someone was being bullied, if someone was having, like, weren't able to finish a paper in time, they invoked the covenant and they helped each other out to accomplish what needed to be done. One time, they all go camping in the woods. The group is Owen, Lauren, Hamish, Maddie, and Nick. They all go camping. Owen is kind of like in love with Lauren, and she now goes by Lore. Like in the future, she's Lore, so I'm going to refer to her as Lore. So Owen's totally in love with Lore. But Lore and Maddie kind of have a thing going on. Anyways, they all go camping. They're drinking, they're smoking pot, there's drug use going on and all that stuff. And so Maddie and Lore go off by themselves and are like, oh, we're gonna go look at the vista. And so this kind of like bothers Owen. He's trying to deny the fact that he really has like feelings for Lore, even though they'd like made out a couple times or whatever. But her and Maddie had been kind of like hooking up and whatnot, and Maddie actually wanted a relationship with Lore. And Laura wasn't quite sure. She's like, do I really want him? I don't really know. And like Maddie is just this bright shining star academically, in sports, you name it, he's good at it, and doesn't do drugs, doesn't really, get into any of that stuff. And so Laura finally decides, because he had been like, I want a relationship. He's like, let's do this, let's be official. And so Laura decides, like, okay, I'm gonna tell him that yes, on this camping trip, I'm gonna tell him, yeah, I wanna be in a relationship. And so they go off and they're talking, and she like opens up this thing she has, and she's like, hey, I got us these sugar cubes. And he's like, I I'm not gonna do drugs. I'm not gonna do that. And he's pissed. Like, how does she not understand this? And she gets all mad. And so obviously she doesn't tell him. And so he's freaking mad at her and obviously very disappointed in her that she would even try to, like, basically, like, he feels like she's trying to ruin his future. Maybe. I don't know. But it's like, this person doesn't do drugs. Why do you think that you should just give him some LSD? Like, not really. Anyways, so that pisses him off. And so when they got to the woods, they had to hike up this trail. It was hard to get up. There's all these like poison ivy vines on the side. And when they got up too, before they went to their campsite, they found this weird staircase in the woods that was just like there. And a lot of them, they like felt it was off. Like it shouldn't be there. Like it wasn't part of the world. And it was just super creepy. But anyways, they all went past it. They decided they weren't gonna like climb it or anything. But then after Maddie and Laura have this fight, Maddie's like, I invoke the covenant. Let's go climb these stairs. Da 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 da. And no one really wants to, but Maddie just like takes off. And so eventually they all follow him. And he like runs up the stairs and he's at the top. Laura took both the sugar cubes, so she's on LSD and seeing weird shit. And then, so Owen also starts to go up the stairs. He goes up a couple of them, and it just feels wrong. But then, Laura, like, sees a portal open up above the top of the stairs. Maddie goes and he jumps, and then he disappears. And they're all, like, looking around the stairs, like, where did he go? What happened? And then, like, someone's, like, yelling at Owen to go up the stairs, and, like, he's like, and then he comes back down. He didn't want to follow him because I think he saw the portal too. And so Maddie disappears. And then it's like 20 years later. So like they had the cops questioned them. They had thought like that the kids had something to do with it. And then eventually one of their friends took the blame. Nick took the blame. And so that they stopped focusing on them. But it's still like everyone in town just, looked down on them. The parents blamed them and all that stuff. So 20 years later, their friend Nick, like they kind of all went their separate ways. For a while, Laura and Owen kind of like they went to the same college and hung out together, but then eventually they also went their separate ways. So people hadn't really talked to each other. And one day Nick reaches out to all of them and he's like, hey guys, I have cancer and I'm dying and I just want to see you guys all before my funeral. So they all meet up together. And this driver picks them up at the airport, and they all think they're going to like some hotel somewhere. And then the driver takes them to some random woods. And they're like, what? But then Nick like comes on out and he's like, hey guys, and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, we're gonna be camping. And they're like, what? You no, you didn't tell us this. He's like, well, we used to go camping all the time. And for Owen, he hadn't been camping since all that stuff happened with Maddie. And like Nick had been one of the few who had still been looking for Maddie all these years. And most everyone didn't really answer his emails. Owen would respond politely. And so he finally convinces them, and then they go into the woods and they're going and going. And let's say, to get to the campsite. And it's like an hour before they get to where they're going. And they start to feel like bad vibes, like something weird. Owen's like, I've felt this before. What is this? And then they come, and there it is. There's a staircase in the middle of the woods. And Laura's like, we were never camping, were we? And he's like, nope, I've been looking for this for blah, 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 blah. And so everyone's pissed and scared and feeling all these emotions, and the fact that, like, they never went and looked for Maddie. Could he still be alive? Is that a possibility? Like, what? So now they have to decide if they're going to go up that staircase and try and find Maddie. Well, I mean, what do you think's gonna happen? Because I mean, if they don't, there's not much of a book, right? So Lore books it up the staircase, jumps, and she disappears. And so then, reluctantly, the rest of them do follow, and they find themselves in a strange place, in a strange liminal space, we'll say, in between. And if you've been around the channel, I love stories that are like betwixt in between. I like horror in the woods. Even though it starts in the woods, it doesn't stay in the woods, but it does finish in the woods. The emotional dynamic between everyone, the feelings of anger, the feelings of self-worth and worthlessness, and just the things that happen when they're in this other place. I don't want to give away like what the other place is, because that's kind of the coolest part. I will give you a little bit of a like maybe hint. It has a little bit of a House of Leaves kind of vibe, a little bit, but it's not like miserable to read like House of Leaves can sometimes be in parts. So it was an absolute delight of horror to read. I loved it. I tore through it. Why did no one tell me how good Chuck Wendig is? Like, awesome book. Yeah, do they find Maddie? What happens when they're in there? Do they ever come back? Do they find a way out, or are they stuck in this other place permanently? Do they die in there? Does everyone make it out, or does no one make it out? It's such a weird and strange, highly addictive read. I really enjoyed reading this author. If you guys have read Chuck Wendig, do you have any other recommendations that you thought were really good? Because this is my first book I've read by him. I'm not sure where to go next, but I definitely want to read more because, like I said, I loved this book. It was great. Just a weird and awesome horror. What do you think happens when they go up those stairs? Where do you think they go? Well, you gotta read it to find out. And it is a wild one. If you guys enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.